Hi, how's it going? This is President of Collingwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I'm here to review episode 19 of Dark Shadows from the beginning. Yes, narrated by Alexander Mulkey Isles, written by Art Wallace, directed by Leela Swift. So, Bill Malloy is on the hunt for Carolyn. But before we cut to Bill Malloy, what happens is Liz is she comes down the stairs. She's going into the drawing room. She paces. Finally, the phone rings, and it's Bill Malloy. Bill Malloy is phoning her from the Blue Whale. He's he phones Elizabeth, and he tells her that Carolyn and Joe had an argument and left the Blue Whale. So by the way, he finds this out. He finds this out by the bartender Bob. So it's really interesting. I like how Malloy is. If you want someone to hunt down someone for you, Bill Malloy is your dude, for sure. One of the most underrated uh, bounty hunters ever. No, kidding. Bill Malloy wasn't a bounty hunter, but the way he searches for Carolyn in this episode really, really makes me wonder what Bill. Because Bill makes mention in this episode that he used to work in London. uh, I'm not making a Barnabas reference here. Um, so at the Blue Whale, Bill does run into Sam Evans, and he asks, hey, if he'd seen Burke and Carolyn, and he says he hasn't, obviously. Uh, but this is how do I put this? This is where Sam Evans, by the way, still played by Mark Allen, is still here playing Sam Evans. So you guys know. Um, this is where he sort of becomes curious of why they would be together, why they would be hanging out. Uh, Meanwhile, Carolyn is with Joe. They're at the hotel diner. They're there. Joe wants some burgers. And Joe really is annoyed with Carolyn. He's still not happy with her, but Carolyn isn't happy with Joe either for just leaving her. He tells her, well, you were in good company. You weren't alone, and he says, hey, you practically threw yourself at him. You were throwing yourself at him. How am I not to get upset? And I do like, we say when we talk about Joe Haskell, we talk about good old Joe, but Joe did stick up for himself. He did defend himself, and you really appreciate the character for doing that. The one thing I love about male and female characters is when they show me they have a backbone. It's easy to roll over, um, but it's it show when a character stands up for themselves, it shows they have a good quality, unless they're lying. And it's not so good. Um, so back at the Blue Whale, Sam, uh, Sam is telling Bill Malloy what Mr. Wells told him. So letting Sam is letting know who told him information too. I mean, when you say Mr. Wells, it's not everybody knows who Mr. Wells is. You know, my two favorite franchises are DS and Halloween. And I always say about what they have in common. Collinsport is a small town. Haddonfield is a small town. And I love the fact that they are small towns. Uh, Meaning word gets around pretty fast. So that Mr. Wells told Sam about Carolyn visiting Burke in the hotel room. Um, and also you get Bill Malloy telling uh, Sam about Roger's accent, which this really shocks Sam. Uh, And again, Sam is asking about Burke, what or where he was at the time, and act the fact that they do a good job of continuing this at the diner. Uh, well, sorry, when I go back to the diner, I love how Dark Shadows always goes back and forth. They do a really good job. Dark Shadows does a really good job with its cutaway to another location. Look, yes, this is a set, but to see different sets, a bunch of these different sets, you get Collinwood, which last episode that's all we got was the set of Collinwood. But here we get Collinwood, we get the Bluebell, we get the diner. It's nice. I mean, I love how they use these sets. They're really really good. Um, so they this is where Joe finds out Maggie went home sick. Um, she gone home with a headache. So Joe gets the burgers. And Carolyn also apologizes for hurting Joe's pride. Um, but she also tells him, "Hey, I have to live my life my own way." And I do think this is a conversation Carolyn more feels she could have with Joe than her own mother. I'm not saying she's afraid to have this conversation. She just doesn't want to have it right this moment with her, that her mother may not listen to her. I think, look, eventually Carolyn is doing this to sort of get her, though it's towards Joe, like the flirting with Burke. Carolyn, in every way, is hoping her mother will just, realize, hey, Joe's not the guy for me. I mean, she's pretty much said that. I mean, come on now. So Bill phones up Elizabeth from the hotel lobby this time, and says a friend found Carolyn and Joe um, at the hotel lobby, and because Sam had entered the diner not knowing Maggie had went home, and that makes sense actually when you think about where has been on this night. He went to the Bluebell. He did not, and we're going to learn this is where he tends to go once it opens. It doesn't open till 2 p.m. By the way, I know they do mention what time the Bluebell opens in an episode of Dark Shadows. Not this episode, but in an episode of Dark Shadows. I'm not kidding. They do mention it. Let you know what time the drinking starts. I'm having fun reviewing this stuff, guys. I just love how they do Sam's alcoholic problems. I mean, because all of Sam's alcoholic problems point to what he did. And really, and having to see Roger, I'd probably drink every 2 if I had to see Roger a good portion of the day. Uh, no, I'm kidding. um, he did. Sorry, Bill Malloy does say to Liz he told Carolyn about Roger's accent. She was upset, and Joe is bringing her home. So Carolyn is on her way back to Collinwood finally. By the way, this is still the same day Vicky threatened to leave. We're still here. We're still on this day. It's just nighttime. Carolyn comes home, and Elizabeth asks Joe to see if the convertible's in the garage. And I really love the dialogue between mother and daughter here. You have Elizabeth upset that she was with Burke. You have Elizabeth upset that you know that her daughter is hanging out with a man that Elizabeth feels sabotage her brother's breaks. And she tells Carolyn is like telling her mother Elizabeth that I don't see the big deal. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't even come up here. Um, and she tells her, no, somebody tampered with your Uncle Roger's car, and this was no accident. And she doesn't want to believe Burke, but finally Elizabeth tells her what happened all those years ago. That 10 years ago, a murder was committed. That Burke hit somebody with a car. Now, I want to be clear about this. Though Liz is telling this story, she's more telling this story through what Roger described to her. I do think that's what's going on here, though we don't hear Roger fully say to Liz what happened. We have to sort of, and I love what the writers are, what Art Wallace is doing here, and the production team and Lila Swift are doing here. In every way, with Liz doing this, yes, she's telling you this, but keep in mind she didn't actually see the accident. She's going through what Roger's story was and what Roger's testimony was. She's also, with this, or what we're doing is, we, the audience, get to now imagine that in our minds. And I love this. I love this dialogue because it instantly made me think of that night, of that all those years, that 10 years ago. Um, so Carolyn, she says Carolyn would have been just a baby. Carolyn's almost the same age as Vicky. Vicky's what, supposed to be 20. So let's deduct 1 year. So Carolyn would be 9. Let's deduct 2 years. Carolyn would be 8. So Carolyn was what, 8 or 9 when this went down? I like to think she'd remember that. I think really Carolyn. It's really interesting how they play with ages on the show. um, just saying, it's a hit. So Liz tells her what happened. Obviously she heard it through Roger, and that's how where she's getting that from. And Carolyn still doesn't believe that Burke did this. That Burke, even that she does ask her mother, "Why didn't you tell me this in the first place?" Because I wanted to forget about it. That's what Liz says, and it lets you. Though this is a ways off, this also sets up the whole basement angle too, in a lot of ways. Back to the basement angle. That Liz would rather things be forgotten and let go of than to just dwell on them and dwell on them and dwell on them. Okay, it happened. Move the fuck on. Again, telling. No, I want to be clear. Liz was at the trial, but she wasn't there for the actual accident. She's only going off of Roger's testimony, what she heard at the trial. And it was Roger's testimony that put Burke away. So Liz believes. And again, I no one knew about Roger's deal with Sam other than two people, Sam and Roger. Um, really, really good episode. I enjoy reviewing these for you guys. These are just a lot of fun. By the way, this was recorded July 9th, 1966. It aired July 21st, 1966. Recorded on a Thursday, broadcast on a Thursday. Imagine that. Good times. All right, guys. I'll see you soon.